Let's take a look at how the sensor mode works in MIDIBridge. I'm going to load MIDIBridge, connect one cube to the computer, which is going to be the master. And I'll turn on another cube, which is going to work with this one cube. In MIDIBridge, under the second cubes tab, I'll change the color of this cube, maybe a green, and switch the mode to sensor. Now for this to work, we need to click on calibrate once, or the sensors won't work. Now when I place my hand near one of the faces of the cube, you will see activity on the graph. This should apply to all the faces. Now the range is usually 0 to 127, but if you notice a face is not quite giving you that range, you can use the gain slider to increase or decrease that. I'm going to increase the gain for this face. Now it's a better range. Next, here we can make the sensor change the different color components of the cube. If I check red only, we get a change to yellow via the sensor. If I check red and green, we get a dark purple to yellow. And if all three are checked, we get completely off to white. This is a great way to get visual feedback. Here you can select which MIDI CC is sent when the face generates activity. Here you can set the trigger threshold. If this is checked, the from and to range comes into play. So for example, if you set the trigger threshold to 40, and set the from and to range to 20 and 100 respectively, the CCs will then range from 0 to 20 if the sensor value is lower than 40, and will range from 20 to 100 if the sensor value is higher than 100. I would generally use the full range of 0 to 127, so I'm just going to leave it as that. Here you can select a MIDI note to be sent when there is activity on the sensor, and make sure to activate the checkbox for it to work. Or activate this checkbox if you want to send MIDI CC values instead. I'm going to check this one. Here we can zoom in on one face to look at the range in more detail. Click on zoom again to get out of this view. Lastly, the solo switch makes sure only this particular face is sending out MIDI data. Okay, back in Ableton, I have a chord progression running. There are some macro controls here that I would like to control with the sensors on the AudioCubes. I can enable MIDI map mode and make the assignments, but before that, I need to make sure that MIDIBridge is sending out MIDI data. I can do this by selecting the MIDI output here. It's sending on channel 2, and since one face was soloed, we can see the mapping is already done. I'll reduce the range here, maybe minimum cutoff at 100 Hz. And maximum at 15 kHz. Okay, let's test it out. Cool, it works. Let's set up a few more assignments. Maybe this face. Solo it and enable sending MIDI CC. Select the macro. Go to MIDI map mode and it's assigned. I'll limit the range of this too. Keep in mind you always need to solo the face when mapping, or multiple faces might get assigned to the same control. This is working. Let's do one more. I'll use this face. Solo it and enable sending MIDI CC. Select this third macro, switch to MIDI map mode, and it's done. Let's try it out. Right now just the drive is working, as we have soloed that face. I'll turn off solo so all faces are activated. That's filter cutoff. That's delay, dry, wet. And that's dry. Now, if we want visual feedback, we can enable color control on each face. Now we are getting visual feedback. So that's how you can use the sensor mode to control various parameters in your DAW.